No rider could stay on his back. He bucked, bit, and bolted, each attempt leaving another bruised cowboy in the dust. They called him Demon Wind. But when a quiet teenage girl stepped through the gate without rope, spurs, or fear, the wild Mustang did something no one had ever seen. What followed would rewrite everything they thought they knew about trust, pain, and second chances. The dust in the arena hadn't settled in hours. Clearwater Ranch's annual spring showcase was known for its bucking broncs and flashy riders, but today it had drawn a different kind of crowd, one that stayed late, whispering nervously each time the black and silver Mustang was released. The Mustang's coat caught the light like storm clouds over water, beautiful but dangerous. They called him Demon Wind. Not officially, not on the paperwork that said he was just #722 from the BLM's Utah Roundup. But after 6 riders in a row were thrown like rag dolls, the nickname stuck. The 6th had barely cleared the fence in time. The crowd had gasped, but it wasn't concern that filled the air now, it was unease. Something about the horse's eyes, the way they didn't roll wild with panic like others, but stayed locked on every person, calculating, cold, a kind of fury that wasn't blind. "Get the chute ready," Cole Travis barked. His voice was gravel and smoke from too many years on the circuit. "We're not wasting any more time or bones. Put him on the next auction load." The ranch hands didn't argue, they were already limping. One held a bag of ice to a swollen wrist, another checked the fence rail Demon Wind had shattered earlier. The gate creaked as they lured the horse back in with caution and a long pole keeping their distance. But not everyone kept their distance. Near the far corner of the fence, behind a stack of unused hay bales, sat a girl with hair tucked under a faded cap and her knees pulled to her chest. She didn't belong to the crew, didn't wear a badge, didn't speak. Zoe Hart had arrived 3 weeks ago, moved in with her aunt after her mother's funeral. She was 14. She didn't say much, didn't eat much, but she watched, always watched. Especially him. As Demon Wind passed her side of the ring, his ears flicked. A subtle pause in his relentless pacing. His hooves kicked up dust, but his gaze slid toward the fence line, toward her, just for a moment. And Zoe didn't flinch, the others always did. They tensed, braced, backed away. But she held still, chin on her knees, meeting his look like it wasn't a threat. No one noticed. Not yet. Cole spit into the dirt and turned away, already thinking about the auction paperwork. "Untrainable," he muttered. But out by the edge of the ring, Zoe's fingers tightened around the hem of her jeans. She didn't believe that. Not even a little. The sky over Clearwater was pale and mean that morning, a white-washed glare that made every nail, hoof, and fence rail feel twice as sharp. Most folks stayed near the barns when Demon Wind was turned out. Easier to pretend he didn't exist when you couldn't see the dust he kicked or hear the iron gate rattle like a war drum. Zoe didn't pretend. She wandered past the keep out sign like it wasn't meant for her. No one really noticed the girl much anyway. 14, too quiet, and always in second-hand jeans that didn't quite fit. She'd arrived after the funeral, with nothing but a duffel bag and silence that felt louder than words. Aunt Mary gave her chores, feed the barn cats, sweep the tack room, brush the old geldings, but Zoe's feet always found the holding pens, especially his. Demon Wind stood alone in the far paddock, muscles drawn tight like coiled wire, tail flicking, eyes always watching. No one got close. They'd tried, rope halters, pressure training, patience, dominance. It all ended the same: broken fence rails and bruises. But Zoe didn't bring anything with her. No treats, no tack, just a weather-beaten library book and the habit of not talking. She'd sit in the grass a dozen feet away, reading aloud sometimes in a low, tired voice. Not stories for the horse, just for herself. But she noticed he never turned away. That morning, Demon Wind tested the fence again. It wasn't hunger, it wasn't boredom. It was something else, something wild and old and bigger than anger. He backed up slow, head low, muscles rolling like thunder beneath his coat. Then he lunged. The steel gate groaned under the impact. Dust flew. A ranch hand cussed from behind the shed. Another dropped his wrench. Zoe didn't move. She didn't scream, didn't flinch, didn't run. She just looked at him. The Mustang snorted hard, shaking his mane like fire, but his ears flicked back, not in rage, but curiosity, just for a second. "Jesus," muttered Levi, one of the ranch hands, stepping out with wide eyes. "That thing's gonna kill someone." Cole Travis emerged from the barn, wiping his hands with a rag. Not if he's gone by Tuesday, he muttered. Auction truck rolls out at dawn, but Zoe stayed put long after the others cleared out. She sat cross-legged in the dirt, watching the Mustang as he circled once, twice, then settled at the far end of the paddock, still and watchful. He didn't charge again, and Zoe, for the first time in weeks, felt something that wasn't grief. She didn't have a name for it yet, but whatever it was, it started with not flinching. The sun hadn't fully cleared the ridge when Cole Travis spotted movement in the round pen. He squinted past the glare, coffee half spilled in one hand. The gate was open. Inside, the black and silver Mustang was circling slow, tail twitching, eyes locked on something or someone. Then he saw her. Zoe stood near the center, hands at her sides. No rope, no stick, no saddle, just a thin girl in a thrift store sweatshirt, facing down the wildest thing on his ranch, like she didn't know what fear was. What the hell? Cole dropped his mug. It cracked against the gravel. Forgotten. He stormed across the yard, boots punching divots in the dirt. "Hey!" he shouted as he unlatched the outer gate. "Out, now!" Zoe didn't move. Demon Wind had stopped too. He stood across from her, ears forward, nostrils flared. Not a threat, not submission, just stillness. Cole reached the inner rail, breath tight in his throat. "That horse'll kill you, girl," he snapped. "You think he won't? He's put grown men in the ER." Zoe turned slightly, just enough to acknowledge him, but didn't speak. Her eyes never left the Mustang. Cole hesitated. The stallion wasn't pinned or pacing. He wasn't agitated at all. He just watched her, head tilted, weight balanced, like he was figuring her out. "She's crazy," Levi muttered behind him. The ranch hand had come running, wide-eyed. "You want me to?" "No," Cole said, his voice quieter now. "No, let's just see what she does." What she did was nothing. She stood there for 3 more minutes. Then calmly, she stepped back, turned, and walked out of the pen, like she'd been doing it her whole life. She passed Cole without a word, the Mustang's gaze following her all the way. That evening, Cole sat at the kitchen table, boots muddy, dinner cold. Across from him, Mary stirred her coffee, watching him like she already knew what he'd say. She was in the ring with him. Cole finally muttered, "No gear, no nothing," and he just looked at her. Mary didn't blink. "Maybe he sees something the rest of us don't." Cole scoffed, but it came out thin. "Or maybe he's just waiting for the right moment." Mary shrugged. Then why'd he wait today? The next morning, Zoe was back, and the morning after that. She never brought treats or tried to touch him. She just stood inside the round pen and watched. Sometimes she read aloud. Sometimes she sat cross-legged and drew pictures in the dirt with a stick. Demon Wind stopped charging the rails. He stopped pacing when she entered. He started listening, and Cole, for all his years around horses, had no damn idea what was happening. The mornings came cold now, that kind of sharp spring chill that bit through denim and made the metal rails sweat. But still, every day at dawn, Zoe was there, boots too big, sleeves frayed, silence like a second skin. She'd let herself into the round pen with the care of someone stepping onto holy ground, and inside, waiting like always, was Demon Wind. The first few days, he tested her, charged the rails, bucked hard enough to throw shadows, spun with teeth bared, dust in his wake. Zoe never flinched. She never spoke, either, just watched, learned his rhythm, matched his steps from a distance. When he circled left, she shifted the same way. When he stopped and snorted, she did too, hands loose at her sides, weight balanced, gaze soft. It wasn't a technique from a manual. No book had taught her this. It was something older, something instinctive, the quiet language of pain meeting pain, both too raw to reach but too curious to walk away. And something in the Mustang changed, not all at once, not in a way you could name, but slowly. His wild energy began to reshape. The fury that had once exploded outward now simmered beneath the surface, searching instead of striking. On the 6th morning, he didn't rear. On the 7th, he stopped spinning when she entered, just turned his head, ears forward, watching. By the 8th, the ranch hands had noticed. "She's got him under some kind of spell," Levi whispered, leaning against the fence with his arms crossed tight. "Never seen anything like it." "It's not a spell," muttered Ben, one of the older wranglers. "It's respect, and maybe something else." Cole didn't speak. He stood a little further back, arms folded, jaw tense. He'd watched mustangs break and bend and bolt. He'd seen the best trainers in the county try and fail. He'd seen horses lose their fight and men lose their nerve. But he'd never seen a horse like this. Choose. Demon Wind wasn't being trained. He wasn't being taught. He was engaging, matching Zoe step for step, breath for breath, in a silent conversation nobody else could hear. Still think she's crazy? Mary asked him quietly one afternoon. Cole didn't answer. He just kept watching from the shadows as the Mustang moved around the girl, closer now, slower, measured. Zoe stood in the center like a mirror, calm as dusk, steady as stone, and when Demon Wind let out a long, low breath, Zoe exhaled with him. No applause, no fanfare, but every soul on that ranch felt it. Something had shifted, something deep, and no one, not even Cole Travis, knew what to call it. The rain came down in soft sheets, steady and cold. It wasn't the violent kind that split sky and earth. It was quieter than that. But it made the dust slick and the air hum with tension. Horses shifted uneasily in their stalls. The sound of rain on tin roofs unsettled even the steadiest geldings. And Demon Wind, he hated storms. Every drop seemed to hit a nerve. He'd pace, snort, paw the earth until it turned to mud. No gate held him comfortably. No corner calmed him. They kept him in the round pen on days like this, where the rails were high and strong. But today, Zoe was there. She sat beneath her threadbare poncho, legs crossed in the center of the pen, reading aloud from a book so soaked its pages stuck together. She didn't care. The words weren't for her anyway. They never were. Demon Wind paced at first, muscles tense, eyes rimmed white. He circled the ring, once, twice, then stopped. Zoe kept reading. The rain dripped from her hood. Her voice was low and slow. Each sentence a thread tugged gently through the tension between them. Then, without warning, Demon Wind shifted. One hoof moved forward, just one. Zoe didn't look up. Then another step. Then another. The ranch had gone still. Levi paused mid-shovel. Mary stood halfway down the barn aisle, one hand gripping the doorframe like she wasn't sure if she was dreaming. Demon Wind came to a halt no more than 3 feet from Zoe, his head low, rainwater tracing rivers down his face. His breath steamed in the chill. Zoe turned a page, quiet, calm, and then he leaned in. The sound of breath, muzzle against skin. He touched her outstretched hand. No tension, no snort, just contact. And then gone. A flinch, a bolt. He spun and galloped to the far end of the pen, wild again, mane flinging droplets across the rails. But the silence he left behind didn't break. It deepened. At the rail, Ben slowly lowered his phone. Did anyone else see that? Got it, he said softly, staring down at the shaky footage on his screen. I got the whole thing. The video wasn't posted with fanfare, just a quiet upload. No titles, no hashtags, but it spread like wildfire. A wild Mustang, a girl in the rain, no halter, no ropes, just one impossible moment. Is this real? Strangers asked online. Some said it was luck, others said it was fake. But those who knew horses, they watched it again and again, and said nothing at all. The scars weren't obvious at first. They blended into Demon Wind's coat like old secrets. Thin lines along his flank, a faded mark under one eye, a ridge of raised skin across his shoulder where hair refused to grow. But once you knew where to look, you couldn't stop seeing them. Zoe sat just outside his pen that evening, her legs tucked under her, sketchbook balanced on her knees. She wasn't drawing today, just staring, tracing those quiet stories written into his body. Mary had told her the rest. He came in from a roundup 2 years ago, she said. Eyes shadowed, helicopters, panic, dust, stallions bleeding from the mouth from biting metal. Mary's crushed, trying to protect their foals. Zoe had just nodded. They branded him, threw him into holding, and passed him through 5 owners in under 18 months. No one could get near him. They broke ropes trying. One guy swore the horse was possessed. The name made more sense now. Demon Wind. The storm no one could ride. The pain no one could touch. Zoe leaned her head against the rail. She didn't talk to him. Not today. She just sat there, fingers resting on the worn page of a book she hadn't read in weeks. The rain from the other day had smudged the ink. She didn't mind. Inside the pen, the Mustang moved slow, not in fear, but in thought. His steps were deliberate. He came within a few feet, and stood still, ears tilted, not quite forward, not quite back. Zoe closed her eyes. In her chest, something stirred, not words, not yet, just the memory of a hand that used to brush her hair behind her ear, a voice that hummed lullabies off-key, a mother's warmth that had vanished in a twist of metal and glass on a rainy highway. They'd both lost something in a storm. She didn't cry, she didn't reach out, she didn't speak, she simply existed, next to him, near enough to feel his breath, far enough to give him space, and somehow, the horse listened. He lowered his head, chewed softly, released a breath through his nose like a sigh he'd been holding for years. It wasn't dramatic, no sudden trust, no cinematic transformation, just stillness, and for two beings shaped by grief, one with scars on the outside, one with them hidden deeper, that was enough. From the porch, Cole watched the two of them, girl and horse, wound and mirror, and said quietly to no one, "She's not training him." Mary stood beside him, arms folded. No, she's healing with him, and in that quiet space between pain and peace, a story neither of them could speak aloud, began to write itself, one breath, one heartbeat, one scar at a time. The morning air was sharp, the kind that made your lungs sting when you breathed too deep. A small crowd had gathered by the round pen, ranch hands, neighbors, even the mailman. Word had spread. Today was the day. Cole Travis leaned against the rail, arms crossed, jaw locked tight. "You say he trusts you?" he said flatly. "Then prove it." Zoe didn't answer. She just nodded once, then slipped off her boots. She walked into the ring barefoot. The dirt was cool beneath her feet, still damp from last night's rain. She wore no helmet, no lead rope, no saddle, just a threadbare tee and a pair of worn jeans, rolled at the ankles. Demon Wind stood at the far end, nostrils flaring, tail flicking slow. He wasn't pacing, he wasn't tense, he was watching. Zoe approached with a whisper that barely rose above the wind. No commands, no coaxing, just breath and rhythm and something older than words. The crowd murmured. Cole's mouth twitched into a scowl, but then Demon Wind moved, not away, toward. He stepped with the care of glass underfoot, his gaze locked on the girl in the dirt, and when he reached her, he paused, just long enough for the world to hold its breath, then bent a foreleg and lowered his body. The Mustang knelt. Gasps rippled around the fence. Zoe didn't react. No shock, no triumph. She simply reached out, placed her hand gently on his neck, and leaned forward until her chest pressed to his shoulder. Then, like a shadow slipping into place, she climbed onto his back. No bridle, no reins, no stirrups, just trust. Demon Wind rose slowly, carrying her with him. The two of them stood there, horse and girl, scar and silence, while the crowd tried to understand what they were seeing. Then he walked, one step, then another, around the pen, not fast, not dramatic, but steady, willing. Zoe didn't guide him with force, she didn't steer at all. She let him move, trusting he'd carry her, and he did. When they completed the circle, she leaned forward and whispered something into his ear. Whatever it was, Demon Wind released a long breath, dropped his head, and stopped. She slid off, kissed his muzzle, and walked away, not once looking back. The crowd stood frozen. Cole rubbed his hand over his mouth, trying to find something to say, but nothing came. Mary stepped beside him, her voice low. "You wanted proof." Cole swallowed. "I wanted control." "Then you asked the wrong girl," she said. And as the Mustang nuzzled Zoe's shoulder before she stepped out of the ring, everyone watching understood. This wasn't a ride, it was surrender. From both of them, they came in trucks and beat-up sedans. From neighboring towns, dusty ranches, schools and storefronts. Some brought lawn chairs, some brought cameras, most brought doubt. By noon, the rail around the exhibition ring was lined 3 deep. The local paper sent a reporter. Someone from the BLM showed up quietly, standing near the back, sunglasses on, clipboard in hand. Cole stood just inside the gate, arms folded, face unreadable. Mary set a folding chair near the announcer's box, but never sat. No one could quite say what they were expecting. Maybe fireworks, maybe failure, a wild Mustang bucking loose with a girl, too soft to stop him. It was easy to believe until you saw them together. Zoe stepped into the ring barefoot again, same frayed jeans, same steady calm. The breeze lifted her hair as she nodded once to the gate. They let demon wind in, no halter, no rope, just the sound of hooves on soft earth, and that silver-black coat, gleaming like a storm at dusk. He didn't hesitate. He walked straight to her, not rushed, not cautious. Sure. Zoe raised her hand. He lowered his head. Their foreheads touched for half a heartbeat. Then she moved, circling him, not commanding, but inviting, and the Mustang followed, step for step, like wind trailing a shadow. The ring was silent. No snorts, no pawing, no shouts, just movement. She mounted him bareback with the same quiet ease she always had. No drama, no fanfare. Then they moved, walking, turning, looping into wide arcs that folded in on themselves like dance. No reins, no resistance. Every cue was breath, weight, instinct. Halfway through, Zoe leaned forward and whispered something into his ear. Demon Wind lifted his head and broke into a trot, smooth and floating. She didn't pull him back. She let him run. They moved as one, around the ring, through the wind, like something ancient remembering how to be alive again. Somewhere in the crowd, a woman began to cry. A rancher pulled off his hat, held it to his chest. By the time they slowed, the air felt thinner, like everyone had been holding their breath. Zoe dismounted. Demon Wind stood by her side, untethered, unafraid. A boy near the back whispered, "He chose her," and the phrase caught, passed between strangers like gospel. He chose her, not because she broke him, but because she didn't try to. Cole blinked against the sun and cleared his throat, but the words wouldn't come. Mary reached over, laid a hand on his arm. "You see it now?" she asked. He nodded once, slow. "Yeah," he said, voice barely there. "I see it." And in that wide circle of churned-up earth, where so many had come expecting chaos, they found something else entirely: grace. The crowd had thinned by late afternoon, folding chairs packed away, dust settling in the exhibition ring. Most folks had driven off in silence, stirred in ways they couldn't quite explain. Only a few remained. Mary, Cole, the ranch hands, a few curious neighbors lingering by the fence, like they were afraid leaving would break the spell. Zoe stood beside the Mustang, her hand resting just behind his jaw. He didn't flinch, didn't step away. He simply stood with her, calm and rooted, as if this had always been his place. Mary gently cleared her throat. "Zoe, they're asking what to call him now, what to write in the paper." Zoe glanced up, the question lingering in her eyes. She hadn't spoken, not since the accident, not a single word, only silence, sketches, gestures, and that strange, steady way of being that had somehow reached the unreachable. But now, she looked at the crowd, at Cole, at the horse beside her, and then she spoke. "He's not Demon Wind anymore." The words came soft, unsteady, like a door creaking open for the first time in a long while. A pause, then another breath. "His name is Haven." The name hung there, delicate but full, like something sacred. Cole let out a slow exhale, and it sounded like a confession. "Haven," he repeated, more to himself than anyone else. "Yeah, that fits." He took off his hat, held it at his side. His face had lines Zoe hadn't noticed before, creases of regret, maybe, or of something heavier. But when he met her gaze, there was no skepticism left, just understanding. "I thought we were taming a Mustang," he said quietly. "Turns out we were just giving each other a place to land." Haven turned his head slightly at the sound of his new name. His ears flicked, his body soft. Zoe smiled, not wide, not showy, just a quiet lifting at the corners, like sunlight breaking through clouds after a long storm. "He gave me something too," she said, "when nothing else did." No one asked for more. No one needed to, because the truth had been laid out plain in the dirt. This wasn't about dominance, or showmanship, or proving something to the world. It was about return. A name taken by fear, now returned in trust. A girl hollowed by loss, now standing tall beside something whole. Mary wrapped an arm around Zoe's shoulders, and for once, the girl didn't pull away. From the barn, one of the ranch hands quietly replaced the hand-painted sign on the pen gate. It no longer read Demon Wind, caution. Now, in simple black letters, it said Haven. And for everyone who had watched the impossible unfold in that ring, the message was clear. This was not the end. This was where healing began. The wind rolled soft through the valley that morning, no longer a threat, but a presence. It stirred the grass, lifted the edge of Zoe's denim jacket, and danced along the fence rails of the new training ring. Beyond it, horses grazed. Not just Haven, but others now, mustangs with names and stories of their own. They watched him. Haven stood proud, silver-black coat gleaming, a quiet sentinel. No lead rope, no pressure. He moved, and the others followed, not out of fear, but faith. Zoe stood just inside the rail, hand resting on a worn gate post. She didn't speak much still, not unless the moment called for it. But around here, that wasn't a flaw. It was a kind of strength. Above her, nailed into the wood arching over the new round pen, hung a plaque carved by hand. The letters were simple, but their weight was heavy, not broken, just untouched. Cole had asked her what she wanted it to say, weeks back, when the new ring was finished. That was all she said. He didn't argue. Now, people came from far beyond Clearwater, parents with grieving children, veterans, counselors, trainers who used to call horses stubborn, dangerous, lost. They came to see the Mustang who had once been called Demon Wind, and the girl who never tried to break him. They came to learn. Zoe didn't teach the way others did. She didn't bark orders or hold clinics with clipboards. She just was, present, patient, and Haven was her echo, moving through the paddocks with the same quiet certainty. The program they'd started was small at first. A few rescued horses, a few broken-hearted kids. Now, it had a name, the Haven Method. No shouting, no force, just time and space and trust. Across the country, ranches began changing. Old trainers made room for new voices, and in quiet corners of barns and round pens, people began to understand that some souls didn't need fixing. They just needed someone to stand still long enough to listen. Zoe didn't like cameras, but she allowed one interview, sitting cross-legged beside Haven in the grass. The reporter had asked her, "Why do you think he chose you?" Zoe had looked down, brushed her hand along Haven's mane, then answered simply, "Because I didn't ask him to change." That line made its way into magazines, classrooms, documentaries, but around the ranch, it was something else that stuck. One of the younger kids, 8 years old, hair in her face, and too many bruises on her heart, stood beside Haven last week and whispered, "I think he sees me." Zoe had nodded. "He does," and that was the truth of it. Not a fairy tale, not magic, just a girl, and a horse, and a moment of stillness that grew into something no one could stop. Not broken, not dangerous, just untouched, until someone dared to see what was underneath. If this story moved you, if it made you believe in second chances, in healing beyond words, and in the quiet strength of trust, don't let it end here. Share this story with someone who needs hope. Subscribe to our channel for more true tales of resilience and redemption. Comment below, what would you name a horse who changed your life? Because sometimes the world doesn't need louder voices, just someone willing to stand still and listen.